Nearly 6 years have passed since Ben McDaniel disappeared while freshwater scuba diving, and despite extensive and expensive search efforts, clues as to what happened to the then 30-year-old Tennessee native remain sketchy and unresolved. The oldest of three brothers, born to Shelby and Patty McDaniel, Ben had endured a failed marriage, a bankrupt construction company that left him despondent. In addition, he was saddled with a hefty tax debt, estimated to be $50,000, and he was still deeply affected by the 2008 death of his younger brother Paul from a stroke. Returning to his parents' suburban Memphis home, McDaniel took up their offer to take a sabbatical to Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, where the family maintained a beach home. The move appeared to be beneficial as he gradually began to be returning to normal, aided greatly by rediscovering one of his boyhood passions, scuba diving. He soon became a regular at Vortex Springs, one of Florida's largest freshwater diving facilities. August 18, 2010 had been a typical hot summer day in the region, and at around 7:30 p.m, McDaniel was seen by two other divers as he descended into the springs, presumably headed for a cave. A popular attraction for divers, primarily due to the challenges it offered. The cave had a well-diverse reputation for being extremely treacherous, so much so that the state had debated banning it following 13 deaths attributed to it in the 1990s. In response, the owners had placed a sign at the cave's entrance discouraging further exploration. A second deterrent, a locked gate, was placed some 300 feet further into the cave. A key to unlock the gate was available at the dive shop, but was only given to certified cave divers, which McDaniel wasn't. But his presence at the facility had become commonplace, so one of the two divers, employees at the dive shop, who had spotted McDaniel as he began his dive, followed him to the cave, unlocked the gate, then resurfaced. He remains the last known person to see Ben McDaniel. 2 days later, when McDaniel's truck was noticed to still be in the parking lot, the Holmes County Sheriff's Department was notified, and following an initial search turned up nothing but Ben's keys, wallet, containing $700, a cell phone in the truck. Word spread quickly and a detailed search began. The McDaniel family was contacted, and for the next 3 days, volunteer divers and cadaver dogs scoured the cave and surrounding swampland, with the only recovered evidence being 2 oxygen tanks discovered at the cave's entrance. Professional water rescue teams were brought in, but after 36 days of exhaustive search efforts, there was no positive results. The family then offered a sizable reward, but when a diver, ostensibly searching for clues, became trapped and died in the cave, an uproar ensued in the diving community, claiming that the reward had become too much of a temptation, endangering not only the safety of the divers, but also that of subsequent rescue efforts. The reward was then rescinded. Several theories have been proposed over the ensuing years, including foul play, McDaniel staging his own disappearance in order to escape his financial burden, and perhaps the most likely possibility, McDaniel becoming trapped, drowning, and eventually being devoured by aquatic predators. After 6 years, it's unlikely that the tragic saga of Ben McDaniel will ever be definitively uncovered, adding his name to the long list of unexplained disappearances that continue to baffle and mystify. Philip Taylor Kramer, July 12, 1952 to February 12, 1995. Started his career in rock music as the bass player to the reformed psychedelic group Iron Buttery. Although Iron Butterfly's most popular hit, Inagata Devada, was made before his joining, Philip Tyler Kramer recorded 2 albums with the Iron Buttery in the mid-70s, Scorching Beauty and Sun and Steel. After lackluster sales, Kramer left the group in 1977 and concentrated on furthering his education. Kramer completed his aerospace engineering degree, and his genius was reflected in his straight A's in school. His first career following school was with the Northrop, working on the MX missile guidance system as a Department of Defense contractor. He eventually moved into the computer industry, working on facial recognition and communications programs. Immediately prior to his disappearance in 1995, he reportedly developed a mathematical formula for transmissions at a faster-than-light speed. This formula was an ongoing effort by his family to discredit Albert Einstein's theories. On 12th of February 1995, Kramer drove to the Los Angeles airport to pick up a business colleague who never showed up. After waiting almost an hour for his colleague, Kramer drove away and commenced to make some unusual phone calls. He called his wife and longtime friend, an Iron Butterfly drummer, Ron Bushy, stating, "I'll see you on the other side." He then called the police, where he stated, "This is Philip Tyler Kramer." This is 911. Can I help you, sir?" "Yes, you can. I'm going to kill myself. And I want everyone to know. O.J. Simpson is innocent. They did it." Philip Tyler Kramer never returned home that day, and his disappearance lasted for over 4 years. On 29th of May 1999, hikers discovered a wrecked 1993 Ford Aerostar at the bottom of a Malibu, California ravine. Skeletal remains in the vehicle were later identified through dental records as that of Philip Tyler Kramer. Despite law enforcement ruling this as a probable suicide, family and friends of Philip Tyler Kramer discount this theory. Kramer's spouse stated, "Her husband would never, for any reason or under any circumstances, allow himself to completely abandon the family he loves more than life itself." If Philip Tyler Kramer did in fact commit suicide, he successfully withheld these thoughts from his friends and family. So, the question remains, did Philip Tyler Kramer kill himself, or was he silenced for his monumental discovery that would have discredited the life work of many influential people? The Flannan Isles are a group of rocky, uninhabited islands in Scotland. They are named for St. Flannan, but are also known as the Seven Hunters. One of the largest of these 7 islands is the rocky cliff edge island, known as Elaine Moor. Elaine Moor has a grassy hilltop at its apex. Perched atop this grassy hill is a lighthouse that is known as the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse was the scene of 3 mysterious disappearances roughly 1 year after it was built. 3 men vanished from the lighthouse without a trace. There was no sign of a disturbance, and very few clues to the nature of their fate. The scene was reminiscent of that aboard the Mary Celeste, when her crew and passengers famously disappeared roughly 30 years before. On December 7, 1900, Donald MacArthur, Thomas Marshall, and James Ducat arrived at the Flannan Isles Lighthouse to begin their 2-week rotation as keepers of the lighthouse. The superintendent of lighthouses, Robert Moorhead, came with them to do a routine check of the lighthouse and speak to the men. He made certain that everything was in working order, and then spoke with James Ducat about some difficulties they were having with the heavy mist that commonly surrounded the island. The men then said goodbye to the superintendent, and he left. The lighthouse was regularly monitored from the mainland by telescope. This way, if there was an emergency, the men could signal for help. Unfortunately, there was a problem with the mist. The lighthouse was seen on December 7th and December 12th. The lighthouse was also seen on December 15th by a passing ship. The crew noted that the light was not shining, as it should have been. It was not seen from land again until December 29th, well after the men should have ended their rotation. The ship that was to deliver the men's relief and bring them home from the Flannan Isles Lighthouse was delayed until December 21st, because of a run of bad weather. When the ship, the SS Hesperus, arrived in Elam Moor, the men on board expected to see a flag flying to indicate that the keepers had noted their arrival and would be deploying a rowboat to retrieve their relief. However, the flag was not flying, nor did the men respond to a siren. A landing craft with 2 men on board was launched from the SS Hesperus, with 2 men on board. When the 2 men reached Elam Moor, one man, Joseph Moore, went up to check the lighthouse for the 3 missing men. He found the entrance locked. He unlocked the door and entered to find the Flannan Isles Lighthouse unmanned. The clock on the wall had stopped. No fire was in the grate, nor had one been there for a few days. There was a meal sitting at the table. It looked like someone had set it down with the intention of eating it soon, but it was untouched. Whatever had happened to the men, it had happened to them suddenly. There was nothing anyone could do about it, with so few clues. So 4 men, including Moore, were left on the island to operate the lighthouse, and everyone else left. The records of the 3 Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers were subsequently inspected. It was discovered that Elon Moore was hit with a strong storm on December 14th. The last entry was made in the afternoon of December 15th. Superintendent Moorhead concluded that the men must have taken by nature when they left the lighthouse to repair some damage that was done to a storage container outside during the storm. One of his theories, the most likely, was that a large wave came up on the men while they were working and swept all 3 of them into the Atlantic Ocean, where they died. Moorhead's theory is largely regarded as truth. The only other alternatives seemed to be that the men left of their own accord. They were kidnapped, aliens intervened, or they were struck into another dimension, all which seemed ludicrous. Unfortunately, none of their bodies were ever recovered, so there is no way to be sure. Having spent all of his life living in Chicago, it isn't too surprising to learn that author Eugene Izzi wrote his fiction on the classic hardboiled style made famous by the likes of Mickey Spillane and Dashiell Hammett. In his life, Izzi never reached the heights of fame that his predecessors for his writing, but is arguably more famous for the way that his life ended. December 7, 1996 was a busy Saturday in the run-up to Christmas. Just before noon, a man that was walking down Michigan Avenue happened to glance upwards and became embroiled in a mystery that is yet to be satisfactorily solved. 14 floors above street level, a man was dangling outside of a window. When the police arrived several minutes later, they breached the door and discovered a puzzling scene. The victim was identified as Eugene Izzi, and the surly man had asphyxiated by the noose around his neck. The other end of the rope was tied to a steel desk. A fully loaded handgun was found on the floor, but had not been used. Izzi's pockets contained several items that really only posed more questions than they answered. $481 in cash, a set of brass knuckles, a can of what was assumed to be mace, and notes regarding a batch of threatening phone calls. Izzi was dressed in a bulletproof vest when discovered. For about a month after the discovery, detectives hid a certain detail about the scene. In addition to the items found in and around the office, and inside Izzi's pockets, an 800-page manuscript was also found. It was a draft for a new novel that Izzi was working on. Avon Books, Izzi's publishers, were not even aware that it was in development. Contained within these pages might have been a premonition, or even an inspiration. One detailed scene in the manuscript outlines how a Chicago-based author is thrown out of a 14th-floor window attached to a noose. This victim had brass knuckles and mace on him at the time. The draft reveals that Indiana militant men were responsible for the act of violence. All during the Christmas period, much talk was about what precisely happened. Friends, family, and fans all wanted to know one thing: how did Izzi's life end? Opinion was divided. Those that subscribed to murder were very happy to accept that the racist militia that Izzi was rumoured to have infatuated for research staged the murder to look like a suicide that almost wanted to be notified by everyone. If it was a murder, then how come the gun was not used? It would take a very large and determined person to hoist a burly 220-pound man through a window. Another suggestion made was that this was exactly what it looked like: a suicide. Izzi wasn't an author that openly and consistently promoted himself, but it was known that he had battled drug addiction and alcoholism. Perhaps things got too much to handle, and this seemed like his only escape. On January 15th, the official answer was delivered. The Cook County Coroner's Office ruled Izzi's death to be a suicide. His family accepted this finding, but not all of his friends did. Given his distaste for publicity, committing suicide in a style such as this does not seem a contradiction that strikes some of his friends as cold. Neither of these ideas can conclusively end the debate. Either one is as plausible as the other. A new suggestion was made afterwards. Perhaps this was not a murder or suicide at all. Could Eugene Izzi have been acting out the scene from his manuscript and something went horribly wrong? If this is actually what happened, then it would seem to be a little extreme, even for someone that was known to have suffered from serious issues. This would not explain the firearm that was found. Accident, suicide, murder. It isn't likely that the answer will ever come to light. On 4th December 1872, seaman John Johnson of the Dicrata informed Captain Morehouse that he spotted a vessel off the port bow, 3820 north, 1715 west, and 600 miles west of Portugal. As this vessel drew closer to the Dicrata, they noticed that only 3 sails were still set. The remainder of the sails had either been blown away or not raised. Something seemed amiss, and after repeated attempts to contact the members of this ship, Captain Morehouse ordered 3 sailors to board her for inspection. As these sailors rowed towards the ship, they noticed the name, Mary Celeste, New York, written on the stern. Mary Celeste was approximately 100 feet long with an ornamental scroll on her bow. She was built in Nova Scotia in 1860 and originally named the Amazon. She displaced 280 tons and was registered as half a brig. Upon climbing on board, they realized it was unmanned. The vessel was noted to have minimal damage, but overall in proper working order. The only thing that initially seemed out of place was that the lifeboat was missing. The captain of the Mary Celeste's bed was unmade and toys laid on the deck. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 8 a.m. on 25th November 1872, stating all conditions were normal, and that they were near the Azores, approximately 6 miles from the island of Santa Maria. After a thorough search, the crew realized the chronometer, sextant navigation book, and ship's register were missing. The rigging was in disorder, and the binnacle was toppled and the steering compass was smashed in. They found a 6-month supply of food and fresh water, and a cargo consisting of 1,701 well-stowed and unopened barrels of raw alcohol, destined for Genoa, Italy, to fortify wine. The bilge contained only about 3 to 4 feet of water. The ship's crew and passengers' lockers still contained their clothing. Upon returning to the Dicrata, the sailors briefed Captain Morehouse on the results of their search. Ironically, Captain Morehouse knew the captain of the Mary Celeste as Captain Benjamin Spooner Biggs, and also his spouse Sarah. In fact, Captain Morehouse had dinner with the Briggs the day before the Mary Celeste set sail from Pier 44 from New York City's East River on that fateful Tuesday, 5th November 1872. The Biggs had mentioned their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda, would be sailing with them. Biggs had also mentioned how pleased he was with his new professional crew. Captain Morehouse eventually decided to split his crew and sail the Mary Celeste and Dicrata to Gibraltar for her salvaging. Many theories were formulated as to what happened to the crew of Mary Celeste, but to date this mystery has yet to be solved. As a footnote, the Mary Celeste made history once again when Clive Cussler, best-selling novelist and adventurer representing the National Underwater Marine Agency, and John Davis, president of Eco Nova Productions of Canada, announced on 9th of August 2001 that they had discovered the remains of Mary Celeste on a reef off the coast of Haiti. Davis explained the ship sailed under different owners for 12 years, until her last captain loaded her with a cargo of cheap rubber boots and cat food before deliberately sinking her, and then filling an exorbitant insurance claim for an exotic cargo that never existed. Unfortunately for the captain, his plan fell apart after running the ship onto a ruthless reef in Haiti. The ship hung up on the coral and refused to sink. Insurance inspectors investigated and found the worthless cargo. The captain and his first mate were later convicted on charges of what was then known as barratry.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment below. All feedback, good or otherwise is always appreciated. If you have any creepy stories of your own, or have any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to send them in via any of my social media. You can find all links to my social media in the description below. Until next time guys, make sure you lock your doors, stay safe, and I'll see you next video.